Most diabetics are not dying from high blood sugar. They're slowly falling apart from what's missing underneath it. I've spent nearly 45 years between the clinics of Kyoto and the hospitals of New York. I've watched the numbers rise. More people diagnosed, more prescriptions given, more strict diets, more fear, and yet so many of my patients still struggle. One memory stays with me. A woman named Reiko, 69 years old, came to my small countryside clinic in the early spring. She was quiet, polite, the kind of person who apologizes before describing her symptoms. Her blood sugar wasn't terrible. Her diet was clean. But she told me, "I'm tired all the time. My hands feel weak. My mind foggy. I don't feel like myself anymore." At first, it seemed like just another case of fatigue. But when I looked deeper, I saw what I've now seen hundreds of times. A body starving for something far more basic than insulin. Not a new medication. Not another food rule. She was missing key nutrients. The kind we rarely talk about. The kind your body needs quietly, faithfully, every single day. What if your diabetes symptoms were not just about what's too high but about what's too low? Today, I want to walk with you through 5 of the most important vitamins and nutrients that I believe every diabetic should understand. Not because they're trendy, not because they're sold in glossy bottles, but because they work. And I've seen it. These aren't miracle pills. They're building blocks. And sometimes, when the foundation is restored, everything changes. So if you've been doing everything right, but still feel stuck, if you're managing the numbers but losing the spark of life, this may be the most important 25 minutes you spend this year. Let's begin. 1. The hidden crisis. Why most diabetics are missing these 5 nutrients. A few years ago, in a small fishing town along the coast of Shikoku, I met a man named Hiroshi. He was 66 years old, tall, thin, and proud of how well he managed his type 2 diabetes. He brought me a neatly written food journal, showed me his morning walking routine on his flip phone, and even carried a tiny case with his glucose meter and daily logs. His numbers were decent. His diet was disciplined. But something wasn't right. "My muscles feel weak," he told me. "I wake up feeling like I haven't rested. I forget simple things. I feel like my body is fading even when the charts say I'm stable." I ran a few tests. Nothing alarming. But I've learned, after decades of practice, to listen beyond the symptoms. What Hiroshi was describing was depletion. Quiet, invisible, and dangerously overlooked. Most diabetics think the enemy is sugar. But often, the real danger is what's missing. Magnesium, vitamin D, chromium, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin E. These are not exotic supplements. They're essential. They're foundational. And yet, many people living with diabetes are severely lacking in them. Why? Because managing diabetes doesn't just drain your energy. It slowly drains your reserves. Medication, stress, restricted diets, poor sleep. All of these create silent leaks in the body's nutritional balance. And unlike high blood sugar, deficiencies don't scream. They whisper. Through fatigue, through numbness, through subtle changes in mood, memory, and muscle. That was the case with Hiroshi. He wasn't failing at diabetes. His body was simply running on empty. We started small. A magnesium supplement in the evening. More vitamin D through morning sun. A shift in his meals to include more omega-3s. 2 months later, he came back smiling. He wasn't just managing his numbers anymore. He was feeling stronger, clearer, lighter. That was the lesson. Sometimes what the body needs isn't more discipline. It's more nourishment. And that's what this video is really about. Giving your body the tools it needs to heal from the inside out. Not quick fixes, but quiet, powerful support. Now that you understand the hidden crisis, let me take you through the first piece of the puzzle. A mineral most people overlook, yet one of the most important allies for anyone living with diabetes. Let's talk about magnesium. 2. Magnesium, the unsung hero for insulin sensitivity. His name was Thomas, a retired train engineer from Ohio who had moved to the hills of Ibaraki to live closer to his daughter. He came to my clinic after a short fall on his front steps. He wasn't seriously hurt, but when I asked how it happened, he simply said, "My legs just didn't listen." At first, I thought it might be neuropathy common in long-term diabetes. But the more I examined him, the more I realized this wasn't just about nerves. It was deeper, more systemic. Thomas had been living with type 2 diabetes for 11 years. He was careful with his meals, took his medication, stayed active. But behind his effort was a hidden imbalance that no one had addressed. He was severely low in magnesium. Magnesium is not glamorous. It doesn't appear in TV commercials or sparkle on health magazine covers. But it is quietly essential for over 300 biochemical reactions in the human body. And for people with diabetes, it is a pillar of stability. This one mineral helps regulate blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, support muscle function, calm the nervous system, and even reduce blood pressure. When magnesium is low, the body becomes tense, tired, and more resistant to insulin. And yet, nearly half of all people with diabetes are unknowingly deficient. Why? Because high blood sugar causes more magnesium to be lost in the urine. Stress depletes it. Certain medications, including diuretics and proton pump inhibitors, interfere with absorption. And even with a good diet, it is hard to get enough from food alone. Thomas had no idea. He thought his forgetfulness, muscle weakness, and rising blood pressure were just signs of aging. We started him on magnesium glycinate, a gentle, well-absorbed form. He took it every evening with warm tea, like a quiet act of restoration. Within 6 weeks, his sleep improved. His legs felt stronger. His fasting glucose dropped nearly 20 points. He smiled and said, "I feel steady again." That is what magnesium does. It doesn't shout. It supports, like a friend in the background, making everything else work better. And for diabetics, it is one of the most powerful allies the body has. The recommended daily dose is between 200 to 400 milligrams, ideally in forms like citrate or glycinate. And while you can find magnesium in foods like spinach, almonds, and black beans, supplementation is often necessary. But always check with your doctor before starting, especially if you have kidney issues or take multiple medications. Balance matters. Thomas's story reminds me of a simple truth. Not all healing comes from what you remove. Sometimes it begins with what you restore. Now that you've met magnesium, let me introduce you to another quiet force. A vitamin that hides behind its cheerful nickname but plays a serious role in blood sugar, immune health, and even depression. Let's talk about vitamin D. 3. Vitamin D, more than just sunshine, it's your pancreas protector. When Keiko first came to see me, she was frustrated. Not angry, not bitter, just quietly discouraged. She was 64, a retired schoolteacher from Sapporo. Winters in the north were long and gray, and so were her moods. She had type 2 diabetes, mild joint pain, and a kind of heaviness in her chest that wasn't physical. "I feel like I'm always tired, like my body is here but my mind is far away," she said. Her blood sugar wasn't alarming, but it wasn't improving either. She followed her diet, walked daily, slept reasonably well, but something was missing. I ran a few tests and found her vitamin D level was dangerously low. It's something I check often in my patients, especially those with diabetes. And time again, I find the same thing. Deficiency. Vitamin D is known as the sunshine vitamin, but that title does it no justice. It's not just about bones or mood. Vitamin D plays a critical role in how your body processes blood sugar and produces insulin. Low levels are directly linked to insulin resistance and poor beta cell function in the pancreas, the very cells that create insulin in the first place. In other words, without enough vitamin D, your body struggles to regulate itself. And it's not just about sugar. Low vitamin D increases inflammation, weakens the immune system, and raises the risk of cardiovascular problems. It's like removing a key player from your team and expecting the rest to win without it. For Keiko, the solution was simple but profound. A daily dose of vitamin D3, 2000 IU, paired with short morning walks when the sun peeked through. Within 6 weeks, her energy returned. Her fasting blood glucose improved. But what touched me most was when she said, For the first time in years, I feel like I woke up. It reminded me of something I often tell my patients. Sometimes we chase big fixes when the answers are small and quiet. If you're living with diabetes, checking your vitamin D level might be one of the most important things you do this year. The ideal range is between 30 to 50 nanograms per milliliter. And the preferred form for supplementation is vitamin D3, not D2. Food sources help like fatty fish and egg yolks, but for most people, sun exposure and a supplement are essential. As always, speak with your doctor before starting any new supplement, especially if you have kidney issues or take other medications. Vitamin D is more than a vitamin. It's a signal of balance. And for diabetics, it's a light worth turning back on. Now that we've explored the sunshine vitamin, let me take you even deeper. Because there's another trace mineral that almost no one talks about, but it quietly helps insulin do its job. Let's look at chromium. 4. Chromium, the forgotten ally in glucose control. Not long ago, I met a man named David in a small town near Osaka. He was 59, a former airline mechanic who had spent most of his life in the skies, now grounded by fatigue and blood sugar swings that seemed to come out of nowhere. He told me, "I've cut the carbs. I'm walking twice a day. I'm doing everything they said, but my numbers still spike for no reason." His A1C had plateaued. His fasting glucose remained stubbornly high. But what worried him most was the unpredictability. Some days he felt sharp and steady. Other days foggy and weak, like his energy had been drained from the inside out. So I asked him something simple. "Has anyone ever tested your chromium levels?" He looked confused. Chromium? I thought that was something in metal. And there it was. One of the most overlooked keys in blood sugar control. Chromium is a trace mineral, meaning your body only needs a small amount. But its impact is anything but small. It helps insulin do its job, moving glucose from your bloodstream into your cells. Without it, insulin becomes sluggish. The door to your cells stays partly closed. And your blood sugar rises even if everything else seems under control. What's more, chromium may also help lower cholesterol and reduce cravings, both of which are often problems in type 2 diabetes. The challenge is chromium deficiency doesn't scream. It whispers, through slow progress, through constant frustration, through that sinking feeling that no matter what you do, it's never enough. David's diet, though clean, was low in chromium-rich foods. He wasn't eating much broccoli, whole grains, or shellfish. And because he had been on acid-blocking medication for years, his absorption was likely impaired. We started him on chromium picolinate, 200 micrograms per day. It's a highly absorbable form, gentle and effective. Within 8 weeks, his energy stabilized. His A1C dropped by half a point. And for the first time in months, he said, "I feel like I'm getting somewhere." Sometimes what the body needs isn't more effort. It's better support. If you're managing diabetes, chromium might be the missing link. The recommended dose for most adults ranges from 200 to 1,000 micrograms per day, and chromium picolinate is considered the safest and most studied form. Of course, check with your doctor first, especially if you're on insulin or other glucose-lowering medications. Because when your cells start absorbing more sugar, your medication may need adjusting. David's story reminds me that blood sugar is not just a matter of control. It's a matter of cooperation between nutrients, hormones, and your entire lifestyle. And there's another player in this team. One that has been protecting the human heart and calming inflammation for generations. Let's talk about omega-3 fatty acids. 5. Omega-3, the shield for your heart, brain, and nerves. It was early autumn when I met Grace. She was 70 years old, a retired pianist from Vancouver who had moved to Kyoto to be closer to her son. Her hands still moved with elegance, but her steps were slower, and there was a quiet heaviness in her eyes. She had type 2 diabetes, high triglycerides, and a long history of joint stiffness and mood dips that seemed to come and go like the changing seasons. She told me, "I'm not afraid of my blood sugar anymore. I'm afraid of what it's doing to the rest of me. My heart, my mind, they don't feel as strong as they used to." And she wasn't wrong. For people living with diabetes, the damage often begins far from the glucose meter. It starts with inflammation. That's where omega-3 fatty acids come in. These healthy fats, especially EPA and DHA, are found in fatty fish and marine oils. They're known for supporting heart health, reducing triglycerides, calming inflammation, and even improving brain function and emotional balance. In diabetics, these benefits become even more critical. Chronic inflammation can worsen insulin resistance, damage blood vessels, and increase the risk of heart attack or stroke. And the brain, already sensitive to blood sugar swings, becomes even more vulnerable without proper support. Grace's diet was mostly plant-based, which is healthy in many ways, but she wasn't getting the marine omega-3s her body needed. She had tried flaxseed and walnuts, but those only provide ALA, a form the body struggles to convert into the more powerful EPA and DHA. So we added a simple daily supplement, 1,500 milligrams of fish oil with both EPA and DHA. She took it with breakfast and started eating salmon twice a week. 6 weeks later, her triglycerides had dropped. Her joints were more flexible. But the biggest change was her smile. "I feel more like myself," she said. "Like the fog has cleared. Omega-3s don't fix everything, but they lay the groundwork. They protect the blood vessels that carry life to your heart and brain. They soothe the quiet fires of inflammation. They help your body rest, recover, and remember who it is." If you're diabetic, consider omega-3s not just a supplement, but a shield. Aim for 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day, combining both EPA and DHA. And if you're plant-based, look for algae oilets, a clean and effective source. Always talk to your doctor first, especially if you're taking blood-thinning medications, as high doses of omega-3 can increase bleeding risk. Grace taught me a simple lesson. Sometimes healing isn't about energy, it's about clarity. And now let's talk about one last vitamin. One that protects your cells, your nerves, and even your future. Let's look at vitamin E. 6. Vitamin E, your anti-inflammation and vascular repair partner. In the quiet outskirts of Nara, I once cared for a woman named Amina. She was 62, originally from Morocco, and had spent most of her adult life teaching art in Japan. Her paintings were vivid, full of light and emotion. But lately, she said, the world around her had begun to lose its color. "I feel fine, but something inside me doesn't," she said softly. She had lived with diabetes for nearly a decade. Her sugar levels were decent, her blood pressure manageable, but she had been experiencing tingling in her fingers and a dull ache in her calves that came and went like a shadow. She had been told it was just age or perhaps a mild case of neuropathy. But what stood out to me wasn't just her symptom set, was the inflammation markers in her blood work, particularly CRP, quietly elevated. That's when I thought of vitamin E. Vitamin E is often overlooked. People think of it as something for skin or beauty, but in truth, it is one of the body's most powerful antioxidants. Its main job is to protect your cells from oxidative stress, the kind that builds silently in people with diabetes. High blood sugar doesn't just sit in the bloodstream. It reacts. It damages the walls of your blood vessels, fuels chronic inflammation, and accelerates the kind of internal aging that can lead to heart disease, kidney damage, and nerve problems. Vitamin E helps stop that damage. It protects the lining of your blood vessels. It improves circulation. And it calms the kind of inflammation that medication alone cannot reach. For Amina, I recommended a natural form of vitamin E alpha tocopherolate, a moderate dose of 200 IU per day, paired with sunflower seeds and spinach in her meals. It wasn't a quick fix, but over the next 2 months, her energy began to return. Her hands felt less numb. Her walks became longer. And one afternoon, she brought in a new paintinga sunrise over the mountains, golden and warm. "I painted this with both hands," she said, smiling. Sometimes healing is not about adding more power. It's about protecting the power you already have. If you have diabetes, vitamin E might not be the first thing you think of, but it should be on your radar. Especially if you're dealing with nerve pain, fatigue, or signs of poor circulation. You can find it in almonds, sunflower seeds, spinach, and avocados, but for many people, a supplement is needed to reach therapeutic levels. The safe range is usually 200 to 400 IU per day. And always opt for the natural form when possible. It is better absorbed and better used by the body. Just one note of caution. If you're on blood-thinning medication, check with your doctor first. Too much vitamin E can increase bleeding risk in some people. Amina's story taught me something gentle and important. Not all support comes from strength. Some comes from protection, from slowing the quiet damage we cannot see. Now that we've explored all 5 nutrients, let's take a moment to look at how they work together. Because no nutrient acts alone. They form a system, a network of support that can bring balance back to a body that feels off course. Let me show you how they connect. 7. The power combo: how these 5 vitamins work together. I once treated a man named Roberto, a 65-year-old photographer who had lived most of his life in Mexico City before retiring to Okinawa. He came to see me not because of pain or emergency, but because he felt like his energy was slowly slipping away. I can still take photos, he told me, but I've lost the color in them. Not in the picture, but in how I feel. Roberto had type 2 diabetes. He was managing his blood sugar well, at least according to the numbers. But inside he felt unwell. Weak legs, foggy mornings, a growing distance between the person he once was and the man he felt himself becoming. We talked, not just about glucose, but about his life, his routines, his food, his thoughts. What I found was something I have seen more times than I can count. A man doing everything right by the book, but missing the quiet pieces that make the puzzle whole. So we rebuilt his foundation. We began with magnesium to help his insulin work more effectively and to ease the muscle fatigue that had crept into his mornings. Next came vitamin D, which supported his immune system and helped lift the subtle fog of low energy that had dulled his mood. Chromium was added to help regulate the way sugar entered his cells, smoothing out the unpredictable highs and lows. Then came omega-3 fatty acids, which reduced the inflammation in his body and protected his heart. And finally, vitamin E to guard his nerves and blood vessels from the slow, silent damage of oxidative stress. Each week, he noticed small changes. His legs felt more stable. His focus improved. He started waking up before his alarm, feeling rested. And one day, he brought me a photo of the sunrise over the ocean. It was vivid, almost glowing. "I think the color came back," he said. "That's the quiet power of synergy. These 5 nutrients don't work alone. They complement each other. Magnesium improves insulin sensitivity. Vitamin D helps insulin be produced. Chromium supports insulin's action at the cellular level. Omega-3s calm the inflammation that blocks this entire system. And vitamin E protects the tissues that carry it all. When they're present together, something begins to shift. Not just in the body, but in the experience of living with diabetes. Roberto's story taught me a gentle truth. Healing is rarely a single act. It is a collaboration between what the body needs and what we are willing to give it. Now that you've seen how these nutrients work as a team, you may be wondering how to start. Which one comes first? How much is enough? How do you begin without feeling overwhelmed? Let me show you the same simple plan I gave Roberto. A 30-day rhythm that transforms confusion into confidence. It begins not with a pill, but with a purpose. Let's take that next step together. 8. From pills to purpose, your next 30-day action plan. I still think about Min, a 60-year-old Vietnamese gardener I met in the rural town of Ta Tori. He was quiet, lean, and gentle with every plant he touched. But when it came to his own body, he felt lost. "I take the pills. I follow the plan. But I feel like I'm surviving, not living," he told me one afternoon while sitting under the shade of a plum tree. What Min wanted wasn't more control. He wanted clarity, simplicity, a rhythm he could trust. So we created a plan. Nothing overwhelming, just one change at a time. And week by week, he started to feel different, not just better, but more whole. That's what I want to offer you now. Not a prescription, but a path. Something gentle, something steady. A 30-day journey to nourish your body from the inside out. Here is how it works. Week 1, magnesium, the foundation. Start with magnesium glycinate or citrate, 200 to 400 milligrams daily. Take it in the evening to help with rest, muscle recovery, and insulin function. Notice how your body responds. Keep a small journal. Pay attention to your sleep, your tension, your energy. Week 2, Vitamin D, the light within. Add vitamin D3 1000 to 2000 IU daily, depending on your blood level. Go outside in the morning light for 10 to 15 minutes, even if it's cloudy. This week is about waking up physically and emotionally. Track your mood. Track your focus. Something small may begin to shift. Week 3, Chromium, the glucose guide. Introduce chromium picolinate, 200 micrograms daily with breakfast. This week, notice your appetite, your cravings. Do your energy crashes feel different? Is your mind a little clearer? Sometimes the smallest mineral makes the biggest difference. Week 4, Omega-3 and Vitamin E, the protectors. Now that your body is more responsive, it is time to protect it. Add Omega-3, 1000 to 2000 milligrams EPA/DHA, and natural vitamin E, 200 IU. Take them with meals. This is the week of restoration of vessels, of nerves, of long-term peace. Breathe deeper. Walk a little farther. See how far you've come. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to begin. Min once told me, when I plant a seed, I don't expect a tree tomorrow. I just give it what it needs every day, and then I trust it will grow. Your body is no different. You've learned a lot in this journey about magnesium, vitamin D, chromium, omega-3s, and vitamin E. Each one matters, but together, they create something far more powerful than a number on a test. They build resilience. They protect your spirit. They remind you that healing is not an event. It is a rhythm. Now it's your turn. Start with one step. Stay consistent and trust the process. And if you found value in this journey, I invite you to walk further with us. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know which week you're on. Let others learn from your path. Because the more we share, the more we heal together. Thank you for your time, your heart, and your courage. I'll see you in the next chapter.